hear out there is a challenge. And so you do at some point have to stop yourself, especially when you're on a no budget. So when you're on a no budget, then, you know, it's only so many times you can go back to the editor and say, can we, you know. So, but I will say that it's really a challenge when you are on both sides of the camera, because you have so much that you're trying to do, and it just never feels like it's quite right or enough. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay, now I'm going to apologize right now, because I know that the names went by me real quick and trying to put them together. But from the, what is this, plural, what is it, plural of blood?
The plural of blood, yes.
Yes. Now, I don't know about y'all, but when I was watching it, I was just wondering, and I liked it. I just want to put that out first. I did like it. I just want to know, was she as supportive of her husband from the front of it? You know, when you come home and your husband says, I shot somebody, you know, and then it just seems like she just was not supportive of him. Was that intentional for the film?
So that conversation was one of the hardest conversations. I've never made my role. Obviously, I'm the actress, but I'm also the executive producer who's spent quite a bit of time developing the story. And that conversation, when what's known as a critical incident happens, the husband comes home. What is that conversation like? Was one of the hardest things for us to really navigate and try to get right. And we spent a lot of time actually talking with police wives and police family advocates and run scenarios by them in terms of, how would they feel in these circumstances? What are some of the things that they would say? And we actually spoke with some women who were actually African-American police wives who were married to non-Black officers. And they said that if they were in this circumstance, these are the things that they would want to know. So having this how do you argue the right way, right? It's very hard to say the exact right thing. And so what I was coming from in terms of leading the story, and as the actress playing this character, my character, we're coming from two different places, right? My husband was just, out in the field. He knows what his protocol, his processes, he knows what he has to do to manage his role as an officer, right? I'm a woman who's an event planner. So as much as I do my best to support my husband, there's still certain things about that I just don't understand because I don't actively live it. I'm also coming from having gone to a hospital to receive my son. And as I'm about to celebrate the birth of one child, I see, the possible death of another young Black man. And so when my husband comes in and says, I shot this kid, I'm processing everything that I experienced in the hospital that I'm not telling him about, that he doesn't know about. And so in that conversation, we're coming from two different places. I'm coming from the place of that young man's family. Is he okay? My husband's coming from the fact that he's, basically going to lose his badge. He's going to lose his career. That conversation was really tough because there's no right way to have that conversation. That's how people talk. And sometimes, even in a marriage, you don't always connect and you don't always say the right thing. You say the one thing that you shouldn't say in an argument. I'm someone who's been married for many years. And the minute you said it, you're like, crap, I can't go back and do it over again. But you try to keep going, and that's exactly what my character was trying to do. So she very much wants to support her husband, but she feels very strongly about her position and her experience as a woman who's about to be a mother to a Black son, and she can't, ignore that.
Any question? Yes.
Yeah, and also there was another significant.
Hold on, we got a mic coming to you.
Well, there was also another significant point in the beginning at which you said you weren't the type of woman that his mother would have had you marry. So you're a Black woman, so you're coming from the Black experience. And there's also that disconnect, and that he makes the argument that he chose you and lost his family as a result. So there was another point.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I know I saw a hand back there. No? Okay.
No, right here, the red.
Jean.
Okay, had it been a feature film, which I was thinking of that while.
Use the microphone so everyone can hear you.
Okay. Actually, while I was watching it, I thought, this is a feature. There's a big, long story here. But had it been a feature, how would it have ended?
Wow. It's a hard one.
Yeah, thanks. That is a tough one. I think it would have ended probably the same way. It's a bit hard to. It's a bit of a hypothetical situation where it's not until you really sit down with the writers and figure that stuff out. But I think. I think it probably would have ended the same way. I think we would have just expanded on probably more on what actually happened in the shooting, and developed a little bit more their relationship before the shooting, so that we were unpacking a tremendous amount of stuff in a very short period of time, and so I think we could spend more time building that up a little bit more and delving more deeply into it. Would be and spreading it out. But I think the shape of the story potentially would be the same.
One thing I would like to say, I've been thinking about, how else this story, or what other platforms this story could play out in, and we're actually considering using it as a proof of concept for a television series. Because over the course of, me doing field research, talking to former police officers, and like I said, police family advocates, there are so many different angles that we can really visit these stories, because ultimately what this is about is dealing with what the prevailing conversation is surrounding shootings in specifically in the Black community. But we usually tend to see it from a social media perspective. We see it obviously from the Black Lives Matter perspective, from the perspective of how it tears apart families of the victims, and then there's this distrust of within the law enforcement community. But we never really get to hear it from the perspective of a police wife, because they're shielded from that. We don't really get to talk about how they have to, explain to their children what it is that their parent does, and what happens when, their identity's been compromised and their home is no longer safe. Those things, the only kind of small window that we get into that was seeing George Zimmerman unravel after the shooting of Trayvon Martin. And his wife actually went out and did interviews and said, since that case, he got off, but he's been a mess to live with. He can't keep a job. He's been on gun charges, and so there were so many different life experiences that I was able to discover over the course of developing this film, that I think that we can even stretch beyond a feature, that we might even be able to bring this into a mini-series.
That would be absolutely great.
Yeah.
I think there's one other intimate world that could be tapped into, and that's the police life itself in the force, and really tap into what's happening that's not being discussed in the larger discussion about police brutality, about the police experience and how these things unfold. So I think that's
dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder in the home, things like that.
The gentleman right here.
I want to thank you for that film. I'm an ex-police officer. And I also, before I got married to an African-American woman, I was in a 2-year relationship with a Caucasian woman. And this stuff was on the rise about how do I want to live my life. And I kind of backed away. And as a police officer, and you're seeing what we see today, police brutality, you kind of just answered my question, what made you do that? Because I saw stuff that I never realized in a mixed relationship. How do you process that? And then the question she asked you, because the first thing I thought, that white man shit, excuse me, but because when he came home, you was like, how did you do that? And I, as a police officer, I'm like, are you going to ask me how I'm feeling? That's what I thought. But then as you explained, but then I forgot, you just came home from the hospital. And then it made me think about, I've been married for 21 years, so I think about, wow, when we both come home, how do we dump on each other? But just getting back to the story for the police, I just want to say thanks, because as an ex-police officer, I still didn't see all the different angles that you kind of brought to us. So I hope it becomes a series.
Thank you.
That would be great.
I think he covered a lot of what I was thinking. I think you should be commended. Thank you. To be commended for making it thought-provoking. But my thing is that the people that you started being concerned about, the other family, that family is faceless to that household. And to me, it seemed like you were choosing faceless, anonymous people over someone that you've gone over and transcended the differences to be in that house. And so to me, it was like, it's me or them. And the choice was them. So that was the only thing that was troubling to me.
Okay. Yep, I see that.
But it is thought-provoking because everybody's coming at it in different ways.
Before we get to this question, I just want to bring in another question too, and then I'll bring it back out here. Maisha, did I say it right? Okay. Maisha, with your film, you dealt with something that Black people on a whole just will not face, and that's depression. And I thought that it was really great that you did touch on that. That we did bring that to the forefront, because I don't know too many of us sitting in here who have not had a depressive state. So how did you get why? Why for the film?
Why for the film?
Why for the film? Why did the film take that look opposed to anything else?
Well, it it was a very personal. I actually wrote it when I was going through a separation that ultimately led to divorce, and I really went through some things where I did not identify it as depression because, I'm spiritual, I love Jesus, and really specifically, let's keep it real, in the church, you're not supposed to really admit that you are depressed or you're going through something very horrible where, you feel even suicidal sometimes or whatever. Now, I never felt suicidal. I ain't killing myself over nobody. But I'm saying, the reality is that you can go to I call it the dark cloud. Yeah. The dark cloud. It's following you. It's following you. And people don't want to talk about it. They don't want to admit it, especially if they're supposed to, what that means, I don't have faith or whatever. So I felt like it was really important to kind of be that flower on the wall to see what this woman is going through when no one's around, and the things that we don't want to expose to other people because you're being vulnerable. Actually, I'm very uncomfortable sitting here watching this with everyone. I've been having a little bit of anxiety, and that's real because it is very hard to be vulnerable with people and say this is my experience or this is what I'm going through. So I felt like it needed to be done, and we did it on, like I said, a no budget, 4 people in a chicken wing type situation, but I felt like it was something that maybe could help somebody else relate to it.
Yes.
The mask on the face was the bomb. The mask on the face was the bomb. There's a young lady back here that has the...
Yes, I have two comments on two of the films. The first one is the last film that you just talked about. I was so afraid that when she came home, the house would be burned down because she had that, that water. That thing.
The kettle.
And then her, because her landlady had just said, "Oh, you gotta, And I thought, oh, she's gonna come home. She's gonna burn that house down. And I was so worried, all through that part. And also for the one about the police, I have a question. When the cop came back, he said, "I shot somebody." How did she know that it was black? It wasn't in there. So that's why I was very, very confused about her reaction because, after a while she said, "Oh, it's a black man. It's a boy." But I never knew that it was a black guy. At that point, she never would.
She saw it on TV.
It was on the news, but that's a really good that's a really great observation because you're right. He doesn't say that he was he just said he was young.
So that whole scene was really confusing for me.
Okay.
Because we know that boy was black, but she didn't know it at that time.
At the time, she found out the way that it played out was that she found out about it on the news, but you wouldn't have known that because you didn't see his face on the news, and that's a really great observation.
So the continuity was just kind of threw you off.
I see.
Well, this woman first before you.
Okay, right here? Okay.
I loved all the films, and I just want to say titles intrigue me. So the plural of blood, I was wondering what that would be about. And for In the Spotlight, I love the, in this age of social media and likes and reality shows and all this people appearing to be one way, and then to see that this character seemed to have it all, but didn't have it together at all, to the point of violence, and all of that was very, I wish this could be seen more. I wish this could be seen in the high schools and things like that, or with younger groups of people, to let them know that, life is real, being your authentic self is more important than what you get, and if you're not happy doing it and faking it until you make it and all this stuff that they tell you to do. So I really appreciate that message.
Absolutely.
And let's bring it to Spotlight. Let's just a moment. We'll get there. We just want to go here, and I'll come back to you, and then you can bring it back up. Okay. Speaking of Spotlight and the whole idea of the young lady who is doing it, why wasn't she happy? What was the whole issue? What brought her to that point?
So Spotlight is one of those films that I feel like is definitely a feature. They're actually writing on it now. It was so much to explore with Janae, and we were supposed to film this film, like shoot this film 2 years ago. We shot it last year. And it's just amazing how things turn out, because it just didn't work out. The lead moved to LA, and it's like, you know what, forget it. And the weekend we were supposed to shoot, it stormed really bad in Nashville. So we came back around to it, and just sitting with the script more and more, and just, the writer she's also the producer, she'd be here tomorrow. She was still developing it, and I was reading it, the version that I had, and I just saw that this girl was very unhappy. She wanted this life, but it wasn't what she thought it was. And she regretted it. The more and more she went up, the more she started to regret that, okay, I really don't, I ain't got that life. I thought I wanted it, but nah, I don't. And so her manager was more so pushing her to the edge, where she didn't want to, there was a lot of things she didn't want to do, like going to WNAS to do the whole thing. She didn't care about none of that. And so it kind of touched on depression as well. And her depression just spiraled out of control. Like, she just became like just insane. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. And there was a scene that got cut out. I was just trying to make my day, make all of my days. And we shot it in 3 days, a 3-day weekend. There was a scene that got cut, and I really wanted it really, really bad, but there was no way to get it. And that was a social media, we had like this setup of TMZ, and TMZ was gonna shed a lot of light on her love life with the guy in the one scene. Mm-hmm. And that scene actually got extended. It was really shorter than that, but I felt like part of her relationship with him was was a significant scene for her for her whole out of control spiral, so to speak. So, but yeah, it was.
I understand. Okay.
I just wanted to say, to follow up on this lady's comment on Plural of Blood, why the wife knew that the kid was black. I think innately as a black woman, that's the first assumption that you make when you hear about the police killing a young black kid. Just as when I hear about a serial killer, I think it's a crazy white man. So I don't think it was a continuity problem. I think it was kind of genius on your part, whether you intended it or not.
Thank you.
And I just
intended genius.
Explain why I go back and forth like that, because some people, why did she go back and forth? I go back and forth because some of these films have hit you in such a way that we would stay on this one film. And we have 4 people here, and we want to make sure that everyone gets a chance to express their film and why, and that sort of thing.
I want to can I?
Go ahead, sure.
I want to comment on her piggybacking off her piggyback. If I can do that, piggyback. I was, I guess I was in the mind of the wife, because when she was excited coming in the hospital, and then all of a sudden there's this black kid. You know, you about to have a black baby. So, but you see this black kid with this hole in his chest and he's bleeding, and that could possibly be the baby in the future. And so in her mind, I'm thinking, okay, that's all that's gonna be stuck there. Like when she leaves the hospital, that black kid, I'm gonna have a black baby. What am I gonna do? I need to, really, this is something I need to think about and consider. And so for the husband to come in and say, I shot somebody, if I was the woman, I would automatically think that it was the kid that I saw just cross in front of me. So, for her to just automatically think black, that's natural. That's the way I see it. Because it was crucial. You see, this man just, then when you think about the Trayvon Martin situation, all of the real life situations that it resembles, that it mirrors very closely. Exactly. So that's just my 2 cents on it.
And as we bring a microphone down here to the front row, please. The one thing that I thought about, though, in that, because my nephew's a Chicago police officer, and I think about when they strap up and they go out there and they don't know what they're going to face, and they don't know what that situation is going to bring them. And I just can't even imagine if he walked into the house and said, I shot somebody. He has said that's the biggest fear he has. It's not a fear that somebody shoots him. His fear is that he will shoot someone. And, I can go on for that. So that's one reason why when he walked in, it was like, well, damn, it wasn't like, oh, baby, what happened? I'm sorry. It was, but I can understand because you had 2 losses. Really 3 in a way. You lost your baby, you lost your husband, and you lost faith in the marriage and what was going on. You kind of lost a part of you. So I can understand where it all came out of. This young lady, right? Oh, too bad. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm a movie connoisseur. Okay, I'm a movie connoisseur. So at one point in the last portion of the video, we didn't hear sound. Was that intentional? Because when it came back, what did he say to change your mind?
Yeah, Maisha.
Yeah,
The last film.
Wait, that was number 1. Then number 2, was that Mount Zemo?
See, we didn't have no product placement, so I wasn't trying to, show show me the money. Okay, that was not intentional, and I was very, as I said, it was already been a traumatic experience sharing, and for that to go out, no, it was basically he just. It was a little bit of dialogue where basically he introduced himself and he recognized that something's wrong with her, basically. And she's trying to act normal sitting in the car with, cracked mask at that because it's 4 hours old. But, so it was it was kind of, I don't know what happened. We have to fix that because it's screening again tomorrow and I don't like that. We have to figure that out.
All right, and then we have another one up here.
Well, it was this. She actually asked a question that I was going to ask anyway about for Maisha.
Oh, where are you?
I'm back.
She's back there.
Oh,
okay. Oh,
okay. So she actually asked the question that I was going to ask anyway. But my other question is, as a black woman, you showed the vulnerable state of what a black woman goes through when she goes through a breakup or through a divorce. Was that intentional? Because we always have to put this facade as if we're very strong or we're okay. And I've been through a hard breakup myself. So I know in the limelight, in front of family, in front of friends, I have to act like, oh no, I'm good, I'm fine, I'm moving on. But to show how you are behind closed doors that you're breaking, is that intentional as far as showing that our vulnerable state as a Black woman?
Yeah, I think the character happened to be Black, but I think that a lot of people, we put on the mask. I mean, the mask wasn't really meant to be funny. It was really meant to be symbolic of we all wear masks. You know, we all wear masks, and we don't want to really show ourselves. We don't want to let anyone know that, especially, I mean, you know, it's very few people that want to say, hey, I'm not good. Stop, I'm not good. Okay? It's you know, there's very few people that will do that, but behind closed doors, we're just breaking down. And I really intentionally did want to show what she was going through, the struggle, and really the stillness. Like, I purposely didn't want a lot of dialogue, which was why it was crazy that the few, you know, it's like, okay, a couple of lines that is in there. What happened to the audio, you know? So, but I purposely wanted it to feel very still and silent and lonely, you know? I wanted it to be this, like, quiet, achy pain that no one else